Goalies, what is up? And welcome back to the 6-month anniversary of the DIY Goalie podcast. First off, thank you for not getting sick of listening to us by now. Um, we kind of had mentioned that Connor would not be here next week, but I procrastinated long enough that Connor was back from Mexico and we got him on the podcast. I did try and get a couple interviews lined up, but scheduling didn't work out. So here we are. Fresh off his honeymoon trip to Mexico, Connor's face now looks about as red as his hair. So
Oh,
how we doing? How was the trip?
Oh, that's trip number one. Hey,
That's chirp number one.
Oh boy, yeah, no, Mexico was good. It was a bit of a culture shock being down there. Like I've never traveled outside of Canada before, so it was it was quite an experience for me. I'll say. I was just telling you off camera, just the kind of the story of the excursion that my wife and I went on. Played volleyball, played a round of water volleyball. That was cool. And then got my butt handed to me in cornhole a couple of days later. And yeah, so just kind of really just got to experience a new country, and just kind of a town that I'm not all too familiar with, and just get to hang out with my beautiful wife. And we've been married now for 3-4 months, something along those lines. June, July, October, June, July. Nope.
August,
June, July,
September.
August, September. Yeah. So about there we go. I know my months. Anyways, yeah, and that sun is killer though. I gotta say, like, I mean, like you're making fun of my face, but it is
It's a little red.
It's a little red. My shoulders are in pain, but all in all, it was a good experience. Well worth it. Yeah.
That's good. Well, I'm glad the Mexican international team didn't steal you away from us as to be their goalie coach. So we're glad to have you back. And
yeah. Well, I mean, we weren't too far from Kenya, so I mean, maybe.
Yeah, there you go. Pretty sure you were very far from Kenya.
Oh, probably.
All right. So today, what we got on the docket, guys, we've got, because people are getting started in their hockey seasons this year. So we figured we'd kind of touch on some, I guess, start of the season housekeeping things. So kind of go through some expectations, or maybe expectations isn't the right word, but kind of, some goals that you can kind of set for yourself at the start of the year, and kind of the approach, I guess, is the better way to put it, the approach to the start of the season. Because as goalie coaches, we like to kind of break up the season into, I guess, phases. So, the start of the season, we work on different things than we do in the middle of the season, and then the end of the season and playoffs. So we figured we'd kind of touch on some of that stuff, get you guys thinking about that going into the start of the season this year. I just had to kind of take a jab at Connor. I guess Jacob Markstrom heard him last podcast episode with that big stick save on the goal over in Europe there. So
yeah,
obviously wasn't too happy about Connor's comments last.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, obviously, clearly not. Markstrom, what a guy, man! What a guy! I mean, hey,
got him.
You got me.
Yeah.
You got me. Whatever the over under I had, I'm losing.
All right, so to start things. To start things off, we're going with we're just going to kind of outlay, the general approach. So for us personally, like when we approach our goalie clinics and goalie development at True North Goaltending, we really focus on the kind of foundational fundamentals in the first little bit of the season. The big thing is to establish that kind of baseline, right? So as goalies, we're most successful when we can be consistent and have like a good, solid, consistent base that we can kind of put in and night out. And that's really built off of the foundation that we build and the fundamentals that we kind of are able to fall back on, even if we're maybe not necessarily feeling the best or anything like that. There's always just kind of that fallback. So, anytime you guys are going into a new season, that's kind of really how we want to take, I guess, the first maybe quarter of the season is really building that foundation, building those blocks, and really just start thinking about how you want the season to go. Start setting yourself up some kind of short term goals and really start, if you don't already or if you haven't already, really start thinking about, you know, what you want to get out of this season, what you want to accomplish, and how I guess you're going to get there. So start mapping out that season, and that's going to kind of give you a good I don't know, map, I guess, for what you can do for the rest of the year. Got anything to add to that?
Yeah, no, I think you kind of touched on it already. Just a lot of what I do in the last couple of years in the junior teams that I worked with, I think I spent like a good chunk of the practices prior to season opener, home opener, just working on just the fundamentals, just the simple drills, just getting the hands going, sticks going, legs going, um, everything like that. And then even after home opener, season opener, I still spend maybe the next 4 to 6 practices still working on footwork, edge work, just active hands, active stick, just so then the goalies that I work with know, okay, here's what I'm trying to do, or here's what I want you to do. So then we have that foundation, because if you want to play in this league, these are going to be the skills, or these are going to be the things that you're going to need to be successful throughout the rest of throughout the rest of the season. So just it's never. I mean, I know that a lot of goalies probably in the off season they're probably already working on the basic foundations, and they're probably working on, the things that that coaches are generally working on already in the first couple of weeks of the season. But it's never a bad idea. I find that it's never a bad idea, at least in the first couple of weeks into the season. You're working on the basic foundations, and so then you and your coach, whether you have a dedicated goalie coach or the goalie program that you're working with, how everybody's all on the same page. Everybody has a basic foundation or basic understanding of each other's abilities, and then you're able to progress from there.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was going to mention too. Is it's a really good time to, um, get to know your situation, get to know your personnel. So, um, even if you're on kind of the same team or organization, there's usually at least a couple pieces that are different. You might have a new defenseman or two. You might have a whole new coaching staff. It depends on your situation, where you're playing, and all that stuff. But it gives you like a good kind of um, baseline, I guess, to see like where everyone else is at too. So if you do have a new goalie coach or whatever, you guys get that chance to get to know each other and see where there might be holes to kind of try and plug and what strengths are there and all that stuff. So that's a good time to get on that same page.
No, my what I was going to say was, just the way that I can equate it is with, just in the last 2 leagues that I coached. Um, the first league was more skill based, so the goalies that I worked with, we spent a lot more time just focusing on that. Okay, so like here's kind of the expectation, from this league, or here's what you can expect playing in this league. So here's what we're going to be working on. And then in the other league, it was a lot more of a faster paced kind of game that they played in that league. So that one was, we focused a lot more on excuse me, footwork, edge work, making sure that we get our speed up to the same pace as the players who play in that league. Because like hockey's the same game, but it's not at the same time, right? Like it's dependent on where you play and the levels that you play at. So I mean, like between a tier two junior A league and a tier two junior B league, major difference there because one was majority skill based, the other one was a little bit more fast paced. So you really had to kind of just work on that, just kind of what you work on. What are the strengths of the league, so to speak.
Yeah, for sure. So since we kind of touched on the foundations that we want to be focusing on, the fundamentals that we want to be focusing on for the start of the season, um, I've got four kind of quote unquote pillars, I guess, that I like to build off of, but I want to make sure that those four pillars are strong first. I'm sure you probably have a similar kind of, you know, approach with that, like kind of a baseline of things. So I'll go through my four. They'll probably be very similar to what you have, but you can go through yours and kind of, break them down a little bit too. And it's always good, I think, to get a couple different perspectives. So even though it might be the same pillar, you might have a different approach to it. So
Sure.
we purposely kept this from each other for the episode just to have some fun with it and see what discussion came of it. But
In
I'll,
other words, Nathan's trying to sewer me, is what he's doing.
well, yeah, but I do that every day, so should be used to it. So I'll rattle off my four quick and then I'll go in depth a little bit more. But basically, like my foundational pillars, I've got tracking slash head trajectory. And these are in no particular order, they're just the four that I have: positioning, skating, and efficiency. So tracking head trajectory, we've talked lots about it. Pretty much every goalie coach out there, any good goalie coach out there should be talking about it. Um, it is very hard to stop a puck that we can't see. Shout out to our blind hockey goalies out there. They go above and beyond that, but in general, um, it's very hard to stop a puck that we can't see. So we want to make sure that we have our eyes on the puck. We're tracking it into our bodies so we know if we have it or we know where the rebound is if it pops out. But the head trajectory I find is the big one too. Like a lot of goalies, even though they technically are tracking the puck, their head doesn't come with, which makes it very hard for their body to come and make that save, right? Because our body follows our head. So if your head's not moving into that save, your body's not moving into that save, it's a lot harder to make that save. So, big thing, anytime you guys are working on things, tracking and head trajectory are a big part, should always be in the back of your mind to be working on. Again, we've talked lots about stuff you can do off the ice to work on that stuff as well, but just in general, that's one of the big pillars. Tracking. The second one, positioning. Okay, so with how fast the game is and how good guys can shoot nowadays, how skilled guys are, positioning is probably 90% of the battle. Like a lot of times it's physically impossible to actually react to a shot in tight, just given the math behind it and how like quick things happen. So if you can be in position, have your hands out, be nice, like knees bent, shoulders forward. Um, you're on angle, you're square, you've got good depth for that specific situation. You're basically 90% of the battle has been won. But it's I think it's underlooked a lot of times. Like even though in the back of our minds we know positioning is important, I feel like very rarely do we actually work on our positioning. So that's something that I think you guys need to really focus in on too. Just keep that in the back of your mind. Am I on angle? Am I square? How's my depth? Where are my hands? Where's my balance? All of that good stuff. um Skating, I was talking to one of our coaches the other day. who did some sessions for us. He's currently on his way down to Tennessee for his ECHL season, but he helped us a little bit for a couple weeks before he left. But he was we were having a conversation, and he's like, I can't believe how many goalies these days just can't skate. Like, they can't work their edges. They, don't know the proper like rotations and all of that stuff. So we watch the pros. They skate pretty much every single day. They do simple crease patterns, simple T pushes, like the basics. They're working on it day in and day out. You guys should be too. Skating is so important because we can't get into position if we can't skate, and we can't track a puck if we're not in position. So it all kind of boils back down to our ability to be able to skate, to be able to move, to be able to use our edges, all of that good stuff. Um, and then the last one, efficiency. So made a whole episode about this back in episode 6. But if we have too much unnecessary movement, you guys are basically screwed, right? Like, as goalies, our margin of error is very thin. So we can't afford to add extra time. We can't afford to take more distance to get to a spot or to get to a puck. We just can't afford that, because that's when pucks end up in the back of our net. So you guys want to do everything you can efficiently and eliminate anything that doesn't help you accomplish the goal of getting to your spot or making a save. So yeah, just tracking, positioning, skating, efficiency. Those are kind of my 4 pillars.
Yeah. Mine are basically the same. I think just in any way, shape, or form, that's just kind of this basis of goaltending right there. I think depending on who you ask when it comes to goalie coaching, who you think the what would be the most important pillar would be. I think skating. We touched on it. I mean, I touched on it a few episodes ago, but skating's got to be number one. It has to be number one pillar out there. Then it comes track. Then it comes positioning. Then comes tracking. And then comes efficiency. Right. I mean, they all kind of go hand in hand with each other. I mean, you can put them in any order realistically, but yeah, I don't. Mine aren't really any different. I don't know if I'd phrase it any differently. Um,
Yeah.
the word that was popping in my head during it all was consistency, but I don't necessarily think that's a pillar. I think it's a fifth pillar when you start playing whatever U13 is. That's when I would start focusing on the consistency maybe a little bit more. And it's not just consistency in your saves, it's consistency in your movement, it's consistency in your skating and how you get from point A to point B on things. With my goalie, with the junior goalies that I work with, the first thing I tell them right away is that particularly during tryouts, the first thing that I look for is how consistent are you in the net. Um, if I throw 10 pucks at your glove side, can you catch 90 of them? Can you catch 80 of them? Same thing on your on with your sticks. If I shoot 10 pucks to your blocker side, to your short side blocker, how many of those can you put off your stick and into the corner consistently?
Yeah, I do agree with you. Like, I don't know if consistency is necessarily like the pillar. I think it's more of like, I guess, the symptom of the pillar, but I do think it relates more sort of like mindset and like our approach, right? Like having a consistent routine, having a consistent kind of focus for each practice or something like that, right? So I think it does tie in to what we're talking about, but I do think it's kind of a symptom of, the foundational items, I guess, or whatever. But yeah, as goalies, that's kind of our benchmark is we want to make sure that we are consistent day in and day out. And I think most coaches, like most head coaches and stuff, kind of use that as the bar for how they feel their goalies are doing, even though they know nothing about the position. That's kind of how they
Yeah,
decide.
it was. I don't know. Like it was just that was the word that was just popping
Yeah,
up in my head. And yeah, you're probably right. Like it probably is. It more than likely is a symptom of that. But I think just as you progress in level or in skill, and I think that word starts to creep up or starts to pop
yeah,
up a lot more than we would think.
yeah, for sure. And like I said, I think that's kind of the baseline that non-goalie people use for goaltenders is how consistent they are.
I want to talk about this next point if we are going to move on to the next one
Okay.
because I did a whole episode on this. So like this is my specialty right here. Coaches have to should be making their practices not only goalie friendly, but how to incorporate your goaltender more into the drill. And the one and only solo podcast episode that I've done up to this point, we really hammer home the idea of that the head coach's job is not to just work with the players. It's also to work with the goalies as well, because the job as a head coach is develop the entire team. You can have your assistant coaches do whatever it is that your assistant coaches do. I mean, I know that they have like the power. I know some teams will have like the power play and penalty kill coaches, the special teams coaches, goalie coaches. Or coaches that only work with the forwards, coaches that only work with the defense. But it's generally it's up to, or it's not up to, it's the responsibility of the head coach to make sure that all aspects of their team is being, for lack of a better term, helped accordingly, right? So when you're doing your practice drills, like obviously not every drill is going to be beneficial to the goaltender, not every drill is going to be beneficial to the player, but there has to be that balance. And I mean, like I know some days, like there are some days where yeah, absolutely, there's probably should be more focus towards penalty kill, power play, um, your forwards or your defense versus your goaltending. But there needs to be some practices where it's kind of evenly spread out, so then all aspects of the team gets development in some way, shape, or form. And it's not just, hey, we're going to hire True North goaltending to come out and work with our goalies for for a skate or two, right? It's when you don't have a dedicated goalie coach or you don't have a dedicated goalie program, such as True North goaltending, for example, that you're still incorporating and working your goaltenders in a way that there's still development happening, even when you may not have like a goalie ideology or a goalie mindset, but there's still active development happening there. Best way that I can describe it is when the head coach with both the junior A team and the junior B team that I was working with really emphasized a lot on the power play and penalty kill and working on special teams there. And it was nice because they were only working out of one end, so I got the other end to work with the goalies. But that's a lot of what they worked on throughout the practice. I mean, like luckily they had me there to work with their goaltending in that regard, but there was no development coming from the head coach and himself when it came to goaltending, because a lot of the drills is just, okay, we're going to warm up the goalies and then we're going to move into some type of battle drill, or we're going to move into special teams or whatever. We're going to move into breakout or whatever. So the goalies are not really getting a lot of shots or a lot of development time in that regard. So it's just coaches just get into the habit now, or have a chat with your goalie coach, or have a chat with goalie parents or the goalies themselves. Is like, how can we incorporate the goalie into the practice more, so then the goalie is getting as much development just as much as the forwards or players when there is no dedicated goalie person there.
So now I'm going to throw this back at you
Oh boy.
because since most of our listeners are like goalies themselves,
Yes.
and since we are kind of going through like best practices, I guess, or best approach for like the start of a season, how would you tell the goalies out there to approach their coach and how they can talk with their coach to get on the same page? Because let's be honest, 80% of the coaches out there are not going to take the initiative to go talk to their goalies. And I might even be lowballing at 80%.
No, it's no, that is a hard 99.9%.
Yeah.
Um
So what would you say to that?
the first answer that I had in my head is not podcast friendly. Um it's a good question. That's a very good question, and I hate you for doing that to me. Um
Well, I'll give my thoughts after too, but I just figured.
there so I mean realistically you can't sugarcoat it. You can't dance around the issue. Whether you are a goalie coach or what, not a goalie coach, whether you are a goalie or a goalie parent, you can't dance around it. You got to be like, look, coach, like I feel like these drills that we're working on, aren't they may be beneficial to the team, but we're doing a lot of that, and like there's no development happening for me on my end, like so I think you really have to, for lack of a better term, you have to stand your ground. Like you have to kind of just put foot down and say like, hey, like I deserve as much attention or as much development as the next guy. Now, how your coach reacts to that, that's, I mean, like you can't control the actions of the coach, right? Like unfortunately, that's the reality of it. I mean, like the amount of posts that I read in the goalie parents Facebook group makes me sad, dude. It really does. But I think that's a problem with just hockey as a whole, which can be a whole other podcast. Would really love to get Daniel Wapple on from Increased Performance because I know that guy loves to trash that. Um, but I really just easier said than done. But I really think like you gotta have like a heart, not a heart to heart, but you really you got to have that tough conversation, right? And how your coach reacts to that. I mean, it is what it is. Some coaches may respect that and say like, hey, you know what? I appreciate you coming up, talking and mentioning to me about it. We'll see what we can do for you, and then it's left in the coach's hands from there. And if your other coach or the other coach is going to be like, tough crap, see you later, might start want to look for a new team next year. That's the only way I can say about it. It's one of those things like you have to, if it is the latter option, and I would really sincerely hope that it's not. Honestly, it is. You really it's kind of got to play the cards that you're dealt, right? And so it's probably not the answer that I should be giving. Probably not the answer that maybe people want to hear, but I think that's just the reality of it, right? But it never ever hurts to have that conversation, or like if you have that conversation at the start of the year and say like, hey coach, like I'm John Smith, goalie, here's the expectation that I'm kind of having for the team at the start of the year. Or even if you're an older player and you're doing the like interviews with teams or whatever, if you're going to travel teams or whatever, like even as a parent, like just you set the expectation now, set the bar now. That's the first thing that I do actually with my junior. I mean, it's not on the same level, but it's the first thing that I do with my junior goalies at the start of the year. Say, hey, here's my expectations for you guys. What do you expect from me as your coach, right? What do you expect from me? Like, what can I do to help you? Because I know that as the goalie coach, I am the liaison between the goalies and the head coach sometimes, right? Now I don't always get my word or I don't always get my way, but that's it. But it's still the same deal, right? But that's the point that I'm trying to make. I just again, I'm going to be going on a tangent here, and I'm going to really try not to because I think we should save it for a new podcast of what is wrong with goalie development in minor hockey. But I
In
think I
Canada.
just in Canada
Yeah.
particularly, but I have to have that conversation. Set that standard now. Set that bar now. So then it's not gonna kill you come December, January, February.
Yeah. So I'll kind of throw in my tips for that. As you said, a lot of it's situational. Like I know my 19-year-old year, I went up to our coach when I was out in Fort Francis in Ontario. Shout out Lakers. But I, yeah, I wasn't happy with, every single drill, guys were coming to the bottom of the circle and taking their shots. And I'm like, dude, like this does not help me at all. So I kind of asked the coach if we could just adjust the drill and tell the guys to shoot like a step or two inside of the blue line at the very least, just for first drill, hopefully the first two drills, but just to allow me to at least track the puck. And for me as a goalie, I don't care if you take an absolute clapper to my head. If it's from the blue line, I have time to track it. I can get my glove there. I can catch it, whatever.
Yeah.
So fortunately for me, he was super receptive to that. Practice plans were designed a little bit better for that, and things changed, and it was great. Not everybody's situation is like that, and I get that, and hopefully yours is. But a couple tips that can help is if you're on a team with two goalies, get the other goalie on board first before you go have a conversation with the coach, because you can really alienate yourself if you go alone. The other goalie is kind of like, no, that ain't me, and then the coach doesn't like what you're saying, and then unfortunately people out there like to hold grudges, hold vendettas or whatever, and that can backfire. So if you have a second coach or a second goalie, go together. The other thing too is don't be like accusatory when you go. Like, don't say, "Hey, our drills suck. Like, what are you doing? This sucks." Right? Like, be like, "Hey, like, I like what we're doing, but I just feel like there's a couple things that could help us develop a little bit better." And the other thing too, Connor's cat just jumped on his chair. Um, the other thing too is to just make sure that that you guys like explain. Oh my goodness.
Okay, so if we're keeping this in, this is my cat Majesty,
Yeah.
and she she lives up to her name.
Yeah.
I'll tell you that much.
It scared the crap out of you.
It comes with no warning.
Yeah. But yeah, so if you can go with the approach too, to just be like, hey, like, not only does this help us as goalies, but it helps the players too. Like, if you can say, all the guys are shooting from the bottom of the circle every drill, and you're like, how many times are they going to do that in a game? Like, I know when I played junior, the guys who missed the net the most in the games were the guys who always shot from the bottom of the circle in practice, because in the slot they couldn't hit the net. The other thing too you can bring up is be like, hey, how many 5-on-0s do we give up in a game? Okay, one a season, maybe, like not even that. So why are we doing 5-on-0s every single drill? Like, why is there backdoor tap ins every single drill? And just being like, coming with that approach that, hey, this isn't very game like for us or the players. Can we tweak a few things so that we can get more out of it? The players can get more out of it. And also, too, if you're in a better spot, you're able to track, you're able to get warmed up properly, all that good stuff, that forces a better practice, that forces the players to be better, to beat you, because you are doing better as well, right? So that competition kind of helps increase across the board. So go in it with that approach when you talk to the coach, and just like, don't put what they're doing down. Just say, hey, can we make some tweaks? I think it would be better for all of us. Here's why. And these are kind of the things I want to see. And you don't have to try and get them to change everything. Just say, I'd like the first couple drills to have shots from farther out. and I'd like to not have to blow my groin out on every single drill because there's 17 backdoor passes. And we'll phrase that how you will, but I think that's kind of the best approach to it. And that kind of also helps to kind of set the expectation on both sides. And hopefully, if you have a good coach, they'll be at least open to it and open to hearing you out and can rebuttal with their own points if they feel like you're not in the right spot or whatever.
It's collaboration is never really a bad thing, right? And whether it's collaboration between goalie and goalie and coach to coach, whatever, like everybody's trying to achieve towards the same goal, and generally the same goal should be is to make the playoffs, win whatever championship it is, um, provincials, whatever it is down the states. Just everybody's goal is to win the season, right? So how do you go about that, right? And so
And development too.
well,
How
yeah,
do we
and
be better by the end of the season
yes,
too?
well,
Yeah.
of course, yeah, but I hate you, I really do.
Shout
You're
out
not,
Dan.
you're not, you're not wrong. Like, obviously that. All right, Kate, you got me. All right, moving on.
No, I agree. I think those are usually the two main goals though, is, obviously a successful season and then the development as well too.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
um
But the development, I suppose, it leads to the
yeah,
successful season,
yeah,
right? So
exactly.
again, kind of a byproduct of that,
Yeah.
should if you will, right? Kind of like we were talking about earlier. Um, so so what do you do then if you have a coach then that's not willing to play ball, or not willing to do that? Because I mean, like, I don't know what it is up here in Canada. Like, I can only speak for Canada, can't really speak down the states, but my god, is it bad up here? Well, I won't say it's bad, but
Yeah. I don't know, like I think it's
it's questionable.
situational. Like, yeah, I've for the most part I've had decent success with coaches being receptive to stuff. Now, how receptive they are varies drastically. But I've had very few coaches just outright ignore what I say as a goalie coach. Now, I'm also a goalie coach, though. It's different when you're the goalie. They
Mhm.
probably take you less seriously. But my advice would be, if you're not winning the battle at your practices on the ice, then make up what you can. Like, we've talked lots about different paths, I guess, or different things you can do to develop. So, you know, off ice, you can still work on your tracking and stuff like that. If you're not getting it at practice, you can go the extra development route. If there's, private sessions you can do, or even like group sessions you can do with a goalie coaching company or a goalie coach or whatever it is. You can work on some stuff, some movements at the public skate or even in downtime at your practice. Like, I know at the end of our Ian Gordon interview, he had said that you need to embrace that development mindset. Like, you need to, like, every ice time, regardless of the situation, does offer an opportunity to get better. You just have to shift that mindset as to how can I make it better. So if your coach isn't going to play ball, if you got two guys shooting at you at once, pick one, track it in, ignore the other one.
Mhm.
If, guys are coming to the bottom of the circle and shooting, well, work on having your hands out. Try your best to track the puck in, even though it's nice in tight. But you can still work on body leans, getting your hands out in front, keeping your eye as much on the puck as you can. Stuff like that. Like, if the drill, um, you only get one shot every like 30 seconds, well, follow the puck as it moves around, or as guys moves around with the puck, right? So that would be my kind of rebuttal to that, I guess. Like, obviously we can't control what the coaches are going to do, unfortunately. So if you're not on the right page with them, if they're not helping you out, unfortunately, you just got to make the most of it and do what you can with what you're given.
Yeah. Yeah, gotta play the cards that you're dealt. Um, I do want to leave off with this because again, I don't want to go into a whole because we could talk about this for another hour or so. And again, I would like to do a podcast on this, maybe a month or two down the line. Minor hockey horror stories. But I think just again, just goalie parents, and I want to address this in particular. If this is something that you guys are that you and your goalie are struggling with, try to solve it in house first before running to the association. And I'm only pointing this out because again, in the goalie parents Facebook group that I'm in, almost everybody's saying write to the organization, write to the organization, write to the organization. And it's like, okay, yes, but again, like Nathan was saying, like talking about alienating yourself, you're doing that to yourself and to the and to your kid as well. It's like do what you can to try to solve it in house first, work with what you got, and then next year make the decision whether you're going to stay with the organization or whether you're going to go and jump somewhere else. Because I've been down a similar, very very similar road when it comes to organizational politics, we'll call it. And I didn't, and the result didn't end up happening until 3 months into the season. So by that point, it was like, what was the point? So you really want to try and solve it in house first. Work with what you can, stick with it to the best of your ability. And like Nathan had said, like if you're not going to get the development that you should be getting in practice, make the most out of it. Make the most out of a bad situation or out of a less than favorable situation, we'll call it, and then take the steps and initiatives to do what you can to maximize your development when you're away from the team.
And regardless of what your coaching staff thinks, Coach Connor and Coach Nathan have your back. We got
exactly,
you.
100%.
We know what you guys are going through.
I am not going to say what I was going to say.
Yeah.
But anyways.
So, yeah, big thing, guys. Yeah, have a conversation. Worst case scenario, it doesn't work out. At least, yeah, we're starting to run a little bit long, and I think the last thing we kind of wanted to touch on here, we want to really get in depth. So I think maybe we'll save it for the next episode. But we did want to kind of break down how our process is for creating like goalie drills and goalie practice plans. But we'll save that for the next episode, I think, because I really want to dive deep into that and really have that be a good topic. So that's, I think, what we'll do for next week. But
we can finally use this screen share feature that we have on our podcasting platform. So if you so I would say you should really, for the listeners, you guys should really watch the video version of this so that we can actually go into our drill builder system and actually do it the way that we should, rather than talking about it. Bang.
Yeah, we can
Product
do that.
placement.
What we can also do, yeah, product placement. Yeah. So yeah, we'll touch on that next week. Big thing from today is, we're getting into a new season. Let's start thinking about what we want to be doing to be successful this season. Um, you know, build that foundation, work on the basics, work on really nailing down a consistent baseline for your game. Um, Figure out how you want or what goals you want for the season. Talk to your coaching staff, get on the same page. Just basically do what you can to set yourself up for success. I think, a couple episodes ago, we talked about our pieces of advice for our younger selves, but one of the biggest things I think too, that I didn't do enough of when I played was just you just kind of showed up to the season and it was what it was, right? Instead of actually trying to take that, active approach of, okay, what do I want to do this year? How do I want to get better? What do I want to accomplish and how am I going to do it? And start to kind of map out your season. So I think that's the big takeaway from today. Just, go out there, have fun, develop, battle hard, all that good stuff.
Yeah. Set the bar, set the tone, set the bar, um, set the long and short term goals that you goalies have for the season. Keep a journal, keep some kind of written log
Yeah.
throughout the season. Um, Chat with us, chat with your goalie coach, chat with other goalies. Really, just really take the year to, like Nathan said, to develop and to just enjoy the year as much as you can, because it comes and goes depending on whatever path you decide to take. All right, were we going to talk
All
about this
right,
or what? Were we
guys.
going to
Well,
talk about this
thanks.
or?
Oh, oh yeah, yeah. For those of you on YouTube, Connor's putting in his Stuart Skinner, Homer card, and is rocking the Seattle Kraken jersey today. So I don't know what's up with that. He must have lost a bet, or maybe he got too much flack from last week's pod and his rants about Stuart Skinner, so he had to try and seem like less of a homer. But
No, so the story about this jersey is a lot funny. I think it'd be funnier than you think, because it probably just comes out of left field. So I bought NHL 25, or more like I bought EA Play so I could get the 10-hour trial of NHL 25 before I actually dropped $90 on it. And so instead of doing, and you can find this all on my YouTube channel, but instead of doing, like the typical going through the Memorial Cup or going through the Champions League for Be a Pro, I was like, I'm going to take all 32 teams, put them in a wheel spinner, and I'll let kind of the wheel decide which team I'm going to end up on. So the wheel picked 5 teams for me. It was LA, Vancouver, New Jersey, Colorado, and Seattle. So then I took those 5 teams, put them into another wheel, spun the wheel again, and I landed on Seattle. So my Be a Pro this year, we're playing for the Seattle Kraken.
rip. Rest in peace.
Yes, yeah. Seattle fans aren't happy about it either. So
Yeah. Oh well. All right. Well, there you go. That's you can keep up with Connor's journey there. We'll link up his personal YouTube channel and you can follow along there.
yeah.
Thanks again for tuning in, listening to our ramblings, guys. I know as we go and get more comfortable on the mic, we probably have less and less relevant information going into these podcasts, but that's all good. If you like what you hear, again, leave us a review, leave us a rating, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all that good stuff. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, like and comment there. You can follow us on Instagram, on Facebook, all of that good stuff, all at the DIY Goalie, TikTok as well. True North Goaltending too. If you're in the Edmonton area, come check us out. We've got our synthetic ice facility and just south of Edmonton up and running. So if you want to have a session with one of us or one of our coaches, it's we like to break things down, make sure you guys are getting good quality. So that's something you can check out at truenorthgoaltending.com. As always, you have our merch and stuff at the DIYgoalie.com/shop. And yeah, as always, make some saves.
We'll see you guys in the next one.
All right. See you guys next week.